But I went to the mall and stood in line with a couple buddies to meet Jodie Sweetin. She was coming to the mall doing autograph signings. Waited for a couple hours as we got up there, and then I wanted to make an impression because I had such a crush on her that my genius idea was to take the $10 bill I had for the movies and have her sign that. So she signed the $10 bill, but then I think I used it at the movies. I didn't think that one through. All right, well, we got another solo episode this week. It's just me, and we're going to be chatting about my week. It'll be like a State of the Union. I had a lot of private gigs. I was just talking with my producer, Mitch, before we got started. I just, yesterday on Sunday, I did a 100-year-old birthday party for a woman at 1 p.m. at a Chinese restaurant in Staten Island. So I can cross that off my comedy bingo card. Yeah, so been doing a lot of private gigs recently, which can be good or bad, because it's like if the show goes well, and, usually the places, they're very nice to me. They usually feed you. You can be part of the party. And, it all depends on how the show goes, Like yesterday was, like I said, a 100-year-old birthday party. So there were a lot of the friends that were in their 80s and 90s. The one grandson was probably my age, so everybody was fairly older, and I had to do 15 minutes. And a lot of it was just lighthearted about her and her age and things in 1925, things like, oh, I don't know if you're over the hill, but you probably saw it being built, like she was very good-hearted about, joking about her age. So, we talked about that, or how like eggs were 3 cents when she was born, and nobody cared about cholesterol because they were getting so much cardio from chasing the chickens, all that kind of. When you do what I've noticed by working with some really good older comedians, and when I say older, I mean experience, not necessarily like older in age, but like I've had like Joey Callahan on the show here, who's a great comedian out of Fishtown, and Mark Riccadonna, who's a very good friend of mine who's taken me under his wing when I first started. I'm actually working with him this week, so I'm excited about that. But just really good about developing jokes that, can be for anybody, or what the crowd is looking for. And, a lot of times with older folks, they want kind of like street style jokes. So tried to stay pretty lighthearted. And then when I could, weave in differences and weave in bits from my own act. And, hey, 15 minutes. And it was good. They were smiling. We were happy. It didn't feel like I was crushing like a late night set, but, it was great. And they fed me Chinese food, so that was awesome. I'll never say no to Chinese food. So I did a private gig. So, but after that, when it was kind of like when I was done, I was like, all right, I'm ready to leave. But on Saturday, I did a Halloween party. And so it was basically a couple that had seen me at the local club, and they wanted some entertainment for their guests because they were doing like a couple's Halloween costume contest. Typical stuff, but they went all out. Like this was a fancy place. Like it was at their home. They had it decorated like they were the Clark Griswolds of Halloween. And everything was like, every time you walk through, whether it was the outside of the house in the yard, they had like a pool area. We're talking details. Every time you walked by it, you noticed something you didn't catch the last time. When you went into the house in their basement, it was all finished, and it was like basically like a man cave. We're talking in a whole area for playing pool, a second like room that was a theater room with like stadium style recliners and a big screen. They had a built-in full bar, which they had somebody there to bartend. And then they also had like a living room set up. And so there were a lot of, couples, probably about 10 couples. So maybe like 20, 30 people. And they were fun. I got there early, set up, went and had a drink, kind of mingled. I can get a sense of who these people are and see their costumes. So maybe I can use a little bit of that. And then for that show, I was doing about 20, 25 minutes. And so we went out by the pool. So outside, it was nice. It was like this nice vibe to it. And they had the pool decorated and fog machines. And so I did my set. Went really well. It was fun. It was kind of weird because not everybody was seated. Some people were like huddled around a fire thing. And so that's always weird when people aren't seated. I don't know. It just seems awkward. But we rolled with it. We had a good time. I really enjoyed it. The set went really well. So I stayed after and chatted, had a drink, and it's kind of nice when you get to do that, and especially when it goes well. If you died, you're like, all right, I'm getting out of here. Let me get my money, and then I'm getting out of here. Um, but no, it's cool to do that because then maybe in the future I can go back there, and continue to have fun, and they'll know me, and I can kind of do more crowd work then, and bring different material and just be a little looser. So that was fun. I like doing the private gigs. And then Friday, Friday I did a don't tell show at the basement of a gun range. No, I mean, listen, I never shot a gun. I mean, I think I shot a rifle once when I was like 15 because I had a buddy who was a hunter. And I shot maybe a bow and arrow a couple times. But they let us, before the show, after I set up, went up to the gun range, and they, taught us everything top notch. It was a place called King Gun Supply. It was off of Henderson or off of Bell in King of Prussia, but great people. I mean, the sweetest people you can meet, very professional, just really good, made it feel at ease. And so this guy, Anthony, had taken us into the range, showed us the ins and outs of it, and then we had the comedy show. They have like a training room, like a classroom setup that we advertised. Great, sold out, a lot of fun. That's what I joked in my act, that I arrived in a Prius, but I was leaving in an F-150. I was like, all of a sudden I'm a Republican. I don't know what happened. But it was interesting to shoot a gun. That's not something, I mean, I grew up in a city. Like, if you had a gun in the city, you were either a cop or the ones the cops were looking for. So not exactly hunters in the truest sense of the word hunter. So it was interesting. But yeah, so I got to do that. It was kind of fun. So I got to impress my father-in-law because he's a big gun guy. I remember when I first met my wife, for some reason they gave us a check for something. Either we bought something for them and they were paying us back. And I noticed that my in-laws, the check was from the NRA. Like, that was the thing. Mine has like Major League Baseball. I mean, I don't have checks anymore, but when I did, I had like Major League Baseball symbols. His NRA. So I think he was excited that I was shooting guns. Like I said, it was not a bad. I enjoyed it. It's fine. I played a little Grand Theft Auto growing up, so I knew the deal. Although I had to learn, I didn't realize, like, you don't hold it under, because my whole, like, how I was grasping a gun was completely based on any movie I had ever seen. And apparently I had it underneath, and it was like, he said, oh, we're not British, you don't hold it like a cup of tea, and I had to, like, hold it in front. I don't know, but I did it. I learned the ropes pretty quickly, and it was kind of fun. But yeah, so those are like sort of my gigs this week, and I'm in the middle of a comedy class right now, which is, 12 people in this class, and it's been a lot of fun to watch them grow, because, like, as much as I love doing my own act, I find, kind of like when I did teaching, if I was tutoring when I was in school, it kind of helped me get better at that subject too. So, like, I would tutor math, which I wouldn't have considered myself very good in math. I'm very invested in looking for pi, but other than that, I was not really good at math. So I kind of had this thing of like, oh, but if I was tutoring someone, it made me be sharper. So that's sort of how it's been with helping out with this comedy school, is like, wow, it's been helping me, because it's so easy to help other people sometimes. I don't know if you ever noticed that. Like, sometimes we, when we're stepping outside of ourselves and we're helping others, we're like, oh, why can't I do that for myself? I took my daughters to the library. We've been going to a lot of libraries recently. And on Mondays, we tend to go to the Chester County Library, because they have like a playroom. And my youngest daughter loves it in there. You go in there and she's like cleaning and tidying everything up. The kitchen set with the kitchen set, the doll toys with the doll toys, the magnet blocks are all together. Like, and then the other mothers are around. They're like, oh my God, she's just so helpful and organized. I'm like, yeah, you should see her bedroom. Like, how is it that she can go to the library and like be the sweetest and most organized girl, and then when it comes to her own room, disaster, like send FEMA, So it's interesting. I think that's human nature. I think sometimes it's easier to help others. And so with the comedy school, it's always fun to watch. We actually have a kid, I believe he has MS, but he's in a wheelchair. He has some, difficulties with, speaking just at a normal click. Like, there are some pauses, but for comedy, it's perfect, because you're like, she's naturally building tension. And he's really funny. He's got some funny stories to share. We just have to kind of be methodical with how much he uses in the setup and getting to the punchline, because the punchline can just be one word or a couple syllables, and boom, it'll hit really hard because people are, hanging on him getting the words out. So it actually works beautifully. And he came in with a clear idea of what he wanted to do, what he wanted to talk about. So it's been really cool watching him kind of come into his own with that, and how independent, he is. He was actually a student at the school I teach at, which I hadn't connected those dots right away. So it's kind of cool to see how important it was for him to have his independence and have everything be the same. And so that's been kind of cool. I'm excited to see that. We have a grad show November 13th at Soul Joel, so if you want to come check it out, it's going to be 11 amazing comedians, myself, Soul Joel himself will be hosting, so that'll be fun. So if you're not busy on November 13th, come on by. November 22nd, I'm also back at Soul Joel's in Pottstown with Mike Vecchione at an 8 o'clock show. And then I have a late night laugh show at 9:45 right after, so super excited about that. So make sure you follow me at J Yoder Comedy. I always got something going on. I am very pumped for November 7th and 8th. So 7th and 8th, I had done a show up in Sayre, Pennsylvania back in June. Used the theater. Chip Chantry came with me, Albert Davis. And we had this really cool, summer teacher show I did. And then the venue there is having a parents podcast come in that does a yearly show with a guy, Jason Gowan. I think it's Gowan. Jason is a cool dude. I've done a bunch of shows with him. He actually did some time on that show. I was at the Sayre Theater. He's on the board for the Sayre Theater, and he's part of this podcast called the Parents Lounge. And they always have really famous guests come on, and he actually every year does a live version of the podcast at the Sayre Theater. And this year, Stephanie from Full House, Jodie Sweetin, is sort of one of the big guests, and then Christine Lakin, who is Al from Step by Step. So if you were a 90s TGIF kid, then I don't even have to explain anymore. We're talking about the middle child from Full House and the middle tomboy from the Step by Step, which was kind of like a modern twist on the Brady Bunch. And those two were back to back. They were the 7:30 and 8 o'clock show after Family Matters. But that was my life on Friday. So I'm going to be on two shows with these two iconic 90s sitcom kids who are now comedians and parents. And so it's going to be really fun. I get to be part of the opener for the pre-show before they get into the podcast. So, and then maybe I'll get to meet them. I actually met. So when I was 12, I want to say, it must have been somewhere around 1995. I think it was whenever the Will Smith Independence Day, whenever Will Smith, that Independence Day movie came out, because I remember we were going to see that movie after. But I went to the mall and stood in line with a couple of buddies to meet Jodie Sweetin. She was coming to the mall doing autograph signings. Waited for a couple hours as we got up there, and then I wanted to make an impression because I had such a crush on her. That my genius idea was to take the $10 bill I had for the movies and have her sign that. So she signed the $10 bill, but then I think I used it at the movies. I didn't think that one through. This was the day before, well before tapping the card and Venmo and all that. Plus I was 12, whatever I had, whatever my mom gave me. But I was like, I was gonna impress her by flashing some money. This $10 bill, she was gonna be like, of the hundreds of people I've seen today, I'm going to remember this guy. So silly. But I'm going to try to find a way to work it into the conversation or into my act. Somebody was saying I should jokingly try to get her to say "how rude" because that was her catchphrase. And then if she refuses to say it, then I should go on stage and offer to take that $10 bill with her signature on it and sell it for $8. And that might get her to say "how rude." But yeah, I'm super excited. That's November 7th and 8th up at the Sayre Theater. The 8th is sold out. The 7th still has some tickets left. So if you're in the Sayre, Binghamton, northern part of PA, southern part of New York State, come on over November 7th and catch the show. That'll be fun. And I think on the 8th, there's actually some time during the day where Jodie and Christine are going to be signing autographs and kind of around to chit chat with too. So check that out. I believe that's all in whether the Sayre Theater. If you look up Sayre Theater, you probably find a lot of the info there. What else I got going on? It was my daughter's birthday. She just turned 12. Alicia turned 12. What a sweetheart. It was so fun. We had a family birthday for her last night. So when I got back from the 100-year, so I went to this 100-year-old birthday party, and then I went to my daughter's 12-year-old birthday party. Man, just thinking about watching this beautiful family celebrate this 100-year-old woman's birthday in life, and I was just so poetic just watching the son give a toast. The daughter-in-law was the one kind of running it, and she was like a drill sergeant with it. You could tell she just wanted it to be perfect, and so much love for her mother-in-law and wanting it to be the best. And she had contacted like her old high school, and they sent a message, and the old business she had worked with sent like a certificate, and she put a slideshow together. I mean, everything short of a piñata. I was like, where's the piñata? Let's get some O. Henry and Babe Ruth bars out. Fun fact, they both came out around the time she was born. They're one of the oldest candy bars. But and then I went up and did my time as well. But I'm thinking about, wow, just how beautiful it was to see all these people. There was a friend who got up and gave a beautiful toast about just how great it was to have her in her life and how much fun she has. And she hopes for 100 more years, and because she couldn't imagine life without her. And I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. So, it made me think about my own legacy. I think we all think about like, wow, I'm not making it to 100, let's be honest. But no matter how much time we make it, you want to make sure that you're leaving a legacy. I think about that with my daughters, how important it is to take these moments in stride and slow them down. Like today, when they get off the bus today, I'm taking them to a library. We have that car ride on the way there, on the way back. These are all moments we have to make an impact, to make a memory. And so I think a lot about that now because I want who's going to be around the table to celebrate me when I'm 60, 70, 80. I was joking with Katie. I was like, are you going to take care of me when I'm old? Can I live with you? And she said, we'll see. But she did. She did tell me she would take care of me. So I believe her, even though she's only 9. But Alicia just turned 12. And I was thinking about that. I kind of wrote like this poem on Facebook last week, when it was the actual day of her birthday, because I was just so impressed. 12. I mean, for the first 6 years of her life, we were waiting for her to speak. I mean, she didn't really start talking in real full sentences until she was like 6. So we spent the first half of her life just wishing for her to speak. And now, I don't want to say I want her to shut up, but sometimes the way she speaks is so funny because she just is like recycling phrases she's reading from like the graphic novels that have a lot of dialogues, or she loves these comic strips. She's really into that. So sometimes she'll steal some of those speech patterns and then try to apply them, right? Which is adorable. I walked in the other day and it was in the evening when I got home from a show, and she's like, Daddy, I need a bowl and make it snappy. And I was like, what? I was like, of course, but I love when I hear her say that. It just cracks me up because, I wanted her to just say anything. I used to have a dream before she started talking. I started dreaming that her first word was hash brown. I don't know why, but it was, I don't know. I think her first word was like ball or something, but, we were waiting so long for that. Because I remember people, because they knew I, taught Spanish and studied in Argentina and Spain. So they're like, oh, you're going to teach her Spanish? I'm like, how about we just get English down first, and then we'll worry about any of that other stuff. And now she's 12, and it's like, wow, like I was watching her open presents last night, and it was just nice to see the joy. I mean, everybody knows get her books. She loves books. And so she opened a book, and she's like, oh, this is the one I needed for my collection. And like, she just gushes this joy. And a lot of it is because she loves to act out these like comic strip scenes. And so it's fun watching her, and it's adorable for the people who got her the gift. Like she just emotes such joy when you watch her. I recorded her opening them because I just want to remember that. I want to have video of that. So when she's 100, we can play those videos for her. Well, I won't. I certainly won't be there if she makes it till 100, but the video will be there. Because I know how much she loves videos. Like, that's her brain works in images. So she really kind of internalizes that. I know every once in a while when she takes my phone and plays with it, she's often replaying old videos. And that's how her memory kind of really works. And so it's fun to watch that. But it was also interesting because, you know, with family and with things like that, you're not always around your family a lot. And sometimes other family members are more present than others. And I noticed that last night. So we had Amanda's side of the family's like party with her. And my father-in-law is one of five. And so one of his oldest sister and one of his older brothers live on property there at the farm. And so they were both there, and then Amanda's mom and her sisters and their kids. But the one uncle, she doesn't see him a lot. And again, people don't engage, not to be like, adults sometimes just don't engage with kids or whatever. But like Alicia is a tougher one because you have to really work to engage with her. Like even last night, all the other kids were out playing hide and go seek, and Alicia is sitting there reading one of the books or reading a comic book on my phone at one point and getting some of the other people to play some of the roles with her. So, but she, if you don't engage with her, so at the end when we had her saying goodbye to everybody, she went up to the one uncle and was just like, "And what's your name?" Like it was just like, she should know his name. But again, I think it speaks to the thing of like, oh, it's not a person that she sees in her life like that. He doesn't come and take her anywhere. And not that he should. It's just the realities of it. And she's, in terms of the social stuff, like, she just doesn't see it that way. She's just gonna be like, oh, wait, who are you? Let me find out your name. And so it's very telling, I think, a lot of times when you're like, oh, wow, yeah, you can't see all your family all the time, but I know I always kind of felt that way. Like I felt like both sides of my family were very different. My mom's side and my dad's side, I didn't really see my dad's side a lot. There were pockets of time, maybe around, I don't know, 6 to 10 or 6 to 11, where I would go on certain holidays and go down to my grandparents, and I had my cousins. And sort of like, that's actually why I came down to this area for college, because I wanted to be close to that side of the family, or, maybe have an opportunity. And, it kind of went in pockets, and, that's, I think, sometimes how it goes. But, you can only do so much, and I think we all learned since COVID that we all are spending our time really intentionally now. We want to be around the people that fill us up, that, challenge us, that reciprocate, and the rest we don't. I was watching sometimes when I'm doom scrolling at night or on the toilet or wherever we all doom scroll. There's one that was kind of putting out images, and there were some ones that stuck out of my mind where it was like the power of stepping away, and it was a picture of matches, and it was like a couple matches had been lit, like 3, there were like 7 in a row, but the 4th match was pulled away, which thus was kind of creating this like, oh, by pulling that one away, it wasn't going to keep the fire going because there was nothing to kind of connect the fire. So it was important to step away. And there was another one that I had seen that spoke basically to the effect of how you treat people and how you spend time with people, and the people who don't reach out to you, then you probably won't reach out back to them. So that's just kind of how I think life goes. I think about friendships like that. I have a dear friend from when I was in 3rd grade, and I won't say his name, but, we had just super close from when I moved around so much that he was kind of like an anchor for me when I was like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like really needed him in my life. It was cool with me because before that I was moving around so much, I just didn't feel like I had a friend. Like, everybody should have a good friend. And then in college, we moved in together a little bit after college. And then he started having some troubles, and, he had to kind of go back home, and he wasn't well, and he had to take care of himself. And ever since then, there was this rift in our relationship, and he's since got himself on the straight and narrow. He's doing great things. He really is flourishing. And now we're kind of sort of reconnected on social media. And I've tried a couple times to be like, hey, I'm going to be in the area. Would you like to go get some coffee? Would you like to, hey, I'm doing a show here at the casino. Would you like me to leave you a ticket? And, just never materialized. He left, as the kids say, he left me on red. I thought it was left me unread. but then it's on read, which means that he saw it and he just didn't respond, which is so much worse than unread. I'd rather he just never have seen it. But so, I don't know where he's at. If you listen to this podcast, when I started this podcast, the first episode, I talked about this book I had been reading, The Four Agreements. And, the first one was, be impeccable with your word, like say what you mean what you say. Second one was don't think things personally, third one was don't make assumptions. And the fourth one was always do your best. So I can't make assumptions. I can't take it personally. He just, he didn't get back to me one way or another. But, I always get a little irked by that because I'm the kind of person that if someone reached out to me, I'm like, oh, let's set a time. Let's make a plan. Let's put it in the calendar. Let's make it happen. But I can't make somebody want that, So that could be disappointing, but hopefully one day we'll get back, and I don't know where his head's at. Or, sometimes when people associate people and things from their past, who knows how they feel about that, or they don't want to have certain feelings be brought up again. I don't know what the case is, but I'm not going to make assumptions. I'm going to try my darndest to not take it personally and hope that when the time is right, he and I'll, get to hang again, which will be cool. Because I think is one of those friendships that, when you're away from someone for a really long time and then all of a sudden you guys get back together and it's like time didn't exist. Like it was just this vacuum of time that just could have been 20 years, but it just kind of goes away and you guys fall right back into where you were. And I feel like it's that kind of friendship. So I'm looking forward to the day when all the time in the middle sort of just evaporates. I was thinking about that when I was writing Alicia's poem the other day. I'll read you what I wrote because I can't quite remember it, but it was something that when I just wanted to kind of recount and think about, all the things. So this is how I started. I said, 12. How are you 12? I spent the first 6 years waiting to hear you speak. And now I love every time you tell me to be quiet and boss me around. Yes, I will get you that bowl and I will make it snappy. I love watching you be you, from your hours of scripting YouTube videos about VHS tapes and DVDs to taking me to every library in the Tri-County area to investigate their entire DVD and book collections. I worried for so long about what life would be like for you. I worried you'd be alone. And while sleepovers and play dates might not be your norm, you filled my world with so much joy that neither of us will ever be alone. You've taught me that being by yourself isn't the same as being alone. I was like, thinking about that too, because when she was younger, I always wanted her to do what other kids were doing, or, go play with that kid, and just wasn't in her being, but even if she's in the room and she like is on her device or she's giggling or she's reading something, she's still with us, so when she's on the couch and she seems like she's in her own world or she's watching the TV and I try to keep us all in the family room, even though she's by herself in that sense, she's not alone, and that took me a while to sort of realize that. So she's not having play dates. She's not doing sleepovers, those kind of things. I mean, she had, for her birth, here's a perfect example. So we had her like birthday party where we invited the people from her cheerleading squad, which is a special needs cheerleading squad. And then we invited the girls from her class, because you either have to invite all of them or by gender. And we were going to do like a craft day. Like, it was a place called Hammer and Stain. So you basically pick a craft and you make a craft and you leave with the craft. So I think we invited about 20 and we had about 8 come. And of the 8, 2 were from her special needs cheerleading, 2 were family, her sister and her cousin. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Her, she made 5. And then there were 2 girls from her class that came. So that was cool. So it was, but it was just 2 from her class. And again, they didn't nobody really engaged with her, but that it's hard to do that. It takes a special kind of kid to kind of know how to try to make a connection with her. And I've seen it, and it's adorable when you see the kids that just have an amazing amount of empathy. And they, know how to make a connection or know how to use her interest to get them in with her. So, you know, people are going to show her they're her friend in their own way. And so in the meantime, she was just so excited to have everybody there. And it went really well, and everybody left with a nice little craft. Oh, I'm sorry, there were 3 kids from her class that went. Oh, that's right. So this one girl showed up late. What a sweetheart. I was showing her where the food was because she came a little late, and I'm like, oh, here's where you can get, this, and this. And she's like, she said something to the effect of, I really enjoy Alicia. She's always so happy, and she makes me feel happy being around her. And it was such this like adorable phrase that I see a kid say to an adult, especially someone who was just like another 11 or 12-year-old girl. And I said something like, yeah, I would kind of brush. I was like, oh yeah, and we know she could be a handful too. She's like, I don't think so. And it was just, again, this kind of sweet girl showing an enormous amount of empathy that I hope most of her classmates do. I worry about what middle school will look like for her next year, and I'm grateful I'll be in the building. And I know, she sort of has her moments where she could kind of, get loud or whatever. But, I'm hopeful that people will take that in stride. And because I know if they yell back at her, it does escalate her, because I know, because I do that to her sometimes. So it'll be interesting to think. I see sort of how she grows and, what it's going to look like. I mean, it's a scary thing for me, but at the same time, it's life, and you hope that, and who knows what she'll be like. Like I said, half her life ago, she wasn't talking, and now she is. So if we're worried about something like friendships, it'll be amazing to think of what 12 years when she's 24, what's that going to look like? And who knows? I mean, the ceiling, whatever the ceiling is, she tends to break it. So I'm not gonna put a hard structure there. We're just gonna treat it like a glass ceiling and let her break her way through. Which is cool, which is, I think, the way any parent should treat it. Whether your kid's special needs or not, you don't know what they're going through, what they're thinking about. So all we could do is be supportive, create those moments, make those memories. And that way, when we're really old, someone's going to want to take care of us. I think that's the circle of life that I want to focus on, because when I look at that 100-year-old birthday party and I see all the love, and there was a baby on the way, and there were some young kids there. And so that's you just kind of had a nice slice of life in like every age group, just gathered in the Staten Island Chinese restaurant. So I told them how cool it was for me to just be a small part of their day, because that was something that, I would hope someone would do that for me someday. So I hope somebody does that for you to this day. And thanks for jaywalking with me, and I'll see you next week.